So hi, Andre. Thank you so much for meeting with me today.
Hey Vivian, how you doing?
First of all, introduce yourself.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andre Nottingham. I serve as Assistant Director of Program Development and Advancement here at the Monroe Cultural Center at the University of Maryland, and also co-founder and Executive Director of a nonprofit called Alliance for Innovation and Education, which is going on 9 years old.
Can you talk a bit more about your nonprofit?
Absolutely. It's a youth development organization and founded on 5 components: academic preparation, health and wellness movement, job training and readiness, financial literacy, and entrepreneurship. And why did we choose those? To me, that was like the pathway. Like if you were to talk to a young person, if I were to be able to advise someone young, that's where I would say concentrate your energies, because with school, do well academically, okay? The other thing you got to realize is that be involved, be engaged. Your health is your wealth, all right? So stay fit, stay active, and then job training, figuring out what it is that you want to contribute to the world, to society. So obviously choosing the right job path that is based upon your passion and your skill set, all right? And then financial literacy, you got to know about finances, you got to know about money, how to manage it, how to sustain it. And then entrepreneurship. And I would say that everyone should aspire to, at some stage, to become an entrepreneur.
Why is that? Why should everybody aspire to being an entrepreneur? I know Dr. Dureke at Hero Watati says that a lot, like everybody should, but why is that so important?
I mean, it's a lesson that I learned later in life. If I would have known that at your age, I could have incorporated a little bit more. I majored in econ and business undergrad, but yet those concepts, I mean, you were trained to kind of work and manage a business for someone else. But now in business curriculum, you'll find a lot of entrepreneurship type programs and courses and things of that sort. But the bottom line is, if you're talking about wealth and accumulating wealth, you're not going to become wealthy working for someone else. Because guess what? The person that employs you, they're the one that is gaining the wealth. And you're making the salary based upon, what's going on. So at no way will the salary that you receive match your skill set. And entrepreneurship is really the only way that you can really gain anywhere near the type of income that you are deserving of based upon your skill set and what you bring to the table.
Agreed. I feel like everybody should do a combination of both working for somebody and also doing their own thing. I feel like it should happen at the same, like simultaneously, because you do need to acquire the experience and the skill sets. Like you have to develop those things by working for someone else. But I think it would do a disservice to you if you are working on somebody else's dream and not chasing yours. Yeah, especially since people can they can not they could what is it? They could look you over pretty much. Like they could, and they won't promote you. They won't see what you bring to the table. They won't they'll probably take it for granted and things of that nature. So and people and our generation right now, millennials, and I guess when Gen Z comes up, we're starting to see that is more important to work for yourself than work for other people, because of the environments, the way that sometimes bosses are not so are like toxic bosses, and just like the out and not getting your own hour, not being able to make your own hours, or having favorable hours. So I think, it's definitely.
But at the same time, everyone doesn't have the discipline and the fortitude sometimes to be an entrepreneur. So it has to fit your temperament, your mindset, and your perspective in the way of operation in order for it to actually come to fruition to the extent that it can. So that's the caveat to it, I guess.
Agreed. Yeah, I also agree. People they don't have, I think that makes sense, because being an entrepreneur can take on different meanings. Like it could be starting up your own business, it could be just creating services that link to other people. So I see what you're saying. I definitely see what you're saying. It's different, what would you say, I guess dosages, something like that.
You got to be a jack of all trades. You got to be a jack of all trades, because you've got to know every aspect of your business. And, there's nothing such as minute when it comes to your business, because the smallest detail, will make or break you. So you've got to know from inventory, you got to know some accounting, you got to know, depending upon the type of business that you're in, shipping and, postage and all that stuff, because the bottom line is you want to train someone to do that for you at some point.
Right.
But then if you don't know what it takes, then you're not in a position to be able to make sure that you're operating, one, with best practices, and then two, that you're able to kind of share that insight and information with someone else.
Agreed. Right. So I think that it's important that we discuss that there's entrepreneurship is one of the best methods to acquire wealth, accumulate wealth. But I really want to know some other ways to accumulate wealth, especially since in this day and age, we're talking about generational wealth, especially in the Black community, because the Black community has systematically not been able to acquire wealth because of like housing, redlining, and just different systems in place. And since Watati is all about changing the narrative, we want to make sure that Black people and also other people of color are able to get the information needed so that we can change the narrative about the fact that, Black people aren't able to get these things.
Absolutely. So for example, stock investments. If you look at the data, it shows, I believe it's only about 30% of the African-American market is in the stock market investing. So that is a very low number. And if you were to compare that to other groups, I'm pretty sure it is significantly higher. So stock investment, just knowing about stocks, because guess what, as African-Americans, we're brand conscious and otherwise, but, some of the things I try to challenge myself and my kids on is the fact of, okay, you like Nike, right? Imagine if you own some stock in Nike. You know what I'm saying? You know that a lot of people are interested in that and otherwise. So whatever other name brand clothing or attire is out there, okay, you're interested in that, right? You like that? Buy some stock in that and then do the research that you need to do to see if that's a wise investment. The other thing, obviously that I've learned trying to set my kids up now, and my daughter, I guess, is the main benefactor. If you take $100 a month and put that in a mutual fund or an investment account, for example, if you did that consistently, the other thing is investment over the long haul yields wealth. Okay. So if you take that $100 and every month you put that $100 away into a mutual fund, for example, a mutual fund is a combination of stocks and other investments that you choose on. And Susie Orman, who's, financial manager, wealth manager, that's on the news, on the radio and TV a lot. She was saying, if you did that at the age of 18, all the way through the age of 55, 60, you'd be a millionaire by the time that you're ready to retire. Because dollar cost averaging, for example, those monies that are working for you, compound interest over that period of time, and that's just $100 a month. So, I've got an account for my daughter set aside, do that, put $100 a month. And that's a way, get to the age of 50. If you continue that on, you're talking at least $700,000 to $1 million that you've accumulated just in that one avenue. The other thing, which I've worked in financial services for different companies, New York Life and Mass Mutual and a couple other financial services companies, is life insurance. A lot of folks in the African-American community, again, that's not something that we invest in. And it has to be seen as an investment because the bottom line is everyone's going to pass away at some point, and it's best to be prepared for that when it happens. So life insurance is a way to do that. And then also it's a way to pass on wealth. So, for example, I have both life insurance at work and I have my own private life insurance. So the bottom line is either should I stop working here at my current role, I still have my own life insurance policy, personal policy that's in place. But if you combine the two, should something happen to me at any point during this time in which I'm employed here, then you got the life insurance that's coming from work and from the one that I own on my own. So, if you're talking about passing on, $1 million in life insurance at your demise, That's better than not having any resources at all to be able to bury the person when it comes time for death and having to put up a GoFundMe account or something of that sort. So just think about it from that vantage point. And I tell people this, and this is the adage, is that the younger that you are, the healthier that you are. And the healthier and the younger that you are, the less the premium that it costs for life insurance. So that's one of the key things. Get insured as early as you can at the healthiest stage that you are. And then that way the premium will be lower. So over the course of the duration of that policy, it will be less expensive than it would be if you waited till later on in life to try to, insure yourself and go from there. So those are just a couple of tidbits of just different things to think about in that regard that are everyday, day-to-day type things that should be in place. Savings also, just kind of knowing how to budget and how to save, so just making sure that you're saving a portion of what you make. The adage is 10%. If you can do 10% of what you can make, if you do more than 10%, then obviously that's better. But at least 10% of what you're doing, whether it go to bills and other expenses, 10% of that should automatically go to the side to put in savings.
Agreed. I think, okay, it's so much information all at once. Right. But I do want to go back to stocks. And I wanted to ask, what are the best resources to really understand what's the best, what are the best stocks to invest in? Because it's a lot. There's a lot of jargon and everything. So it's
Absolutely.
where do I even start from?
Right. Now, one of the apps, TD Ameritrade, and there's a number of other apps that are out there, but from my exposure and experience, TD Ameritrade, there's a research component to that site and to that app that actually teaches you how to kind of break that stuff down. So, for me to try to explain it in this period of time would not, but I would say definitely check that out and then look at different similar type apps. Because it shows you the research. It tells you how to break down a stock, tells you the different variables and factors to take a look at when you're considering the stock, a host of other information, the jargon, definitions, terminology. It gives you all that information for you to kind of dissect and break down. But in the day and age of apps, there's 1,001 out there to kind of take a look at, to kind of help you to kind of learn from there. And then also, if you're into reading straight up, there's the dummy books, Stock Investment for Dummies. That's another resource to kind of take a look at and tap into. That will kind of just give you a general lay of the land. And then as advanced as you start to get in it, of course, there's a number of different books and other resources out there, once you get into the advanced stages of, breaking down. And then Kramer, I don't know if anybody heard of Kramer on MSNBC. It's all about stocks on his show. He tells you about them, he discusses them, he breaks it down, advice, things of that sort. So there's a number of different television programs also. And I think I mentioned Susie Orman. And then there's a Dr. Boyce Watkins, who's a PhD in finance. And he has the Black Business School. And he has a number of different courses, seminars, sessions, and workshops that one could learn about stock investing. And I think he has a program in which, you get your first stock for free, something like that, by participating in this program, things of that sort. And then there's Robinhood. A lot of people use Robinhood also. There's ups and downs with each of the different apps and the various programs, but I use Robinhood, for example. So that's something to kind of take a look at. I don't use it for the research side of it, but, I kind of do a little breakdown and kind of have an idea of what I want to do, and then go ahead and carry out the functions on Robinhood. Dividend generating stocks. There's stocks that pay out dividends. So what happens is that as their earnings, any excess earnings are paid out in dividends. So what happens is, in addition to you owning the stock, you're paid out in dividends. So, I like to make sure a certain percentage of the portfolio that I have is dividend generating stocks. And I kind of go from there. So I do my homework and do my research on what are the best dividend paying stocks, and then make my choices, from that and go from there.
Right.
And then diversification is the last thing.
Yeah, that is, I have heard of that before. I think that the resources that you gave are great because, I mean, a lot of people say, okay, invest in stocks, but it's like, there is a lot of resources out there, but it's about knowing where exactly to start when it comes to researching the stocks and like how to just get into it in general. So all of the information that you gave, all the resources that you gave, very helpful, very, very helpful.
Excellent.
I wanted to also ask about like what middle school and high school students can do because when I was in high school, we had this financial literacy class where they were talking about, oh, invest in stocks and everything, but you could only invest in stocks once you turn 18 and
Right.
things of that nature. So I'm just like, okay, what do I do now? Like, how can I start now or in high school
Yeah,
or middle
you
school?
can high schoolers, middle schoolers, they can open up a joint account with their parents, so that's an avenue. And then with the nonprofit, like with Alliance for Innovation, we have done maybe 2 sessions on financial literacy. And we have, there's a Dave Ramsey, there's a resource booklets, and also we did it virtually during COVID. We had some college students here at College Park, Smith School of Business, who served as our college mentors. And we had middle schoolers and high schoolers, and we took them through, it was about a 10-week session. We met on Saturdays for about 3 hours each session, just going over the curriculum, the Dave Ramsey curriculum. And it covered all kind of topics from insurance to investments to compound interest to you name it, on and on and on. So we're still planning the next time that we're looking at doing a financial literacy workshop. But you can check the website, www.aie-md.org. So the post, the next time we'll be looking at doing a financial literacy workshop. And like I said, it was focused on middle schoolers and high schoolers. So it's never too early to start. And the material that we went over, to me, there was nothing more interesting than having middle schoolers talking about compound interest and then debating each other about this component or that component and it's sitting there like, what universe are we in here? Where these middle schoolers are talking about life insurance and they're talking about retirement. So, we went over all these topical areas and, even in my young age there, I never knew about thinking about retirement at that stage of life, and think about it. If you're thinking about retirement right now, then there's a number of different things you can make sure that you put in place prior to that to make sure that you have the type of retirement that you want.
Right. So yeah, I've been hearing that retirement is another avenue for attaining generational wealth, like putting it into like a 401k or something else. I'm not quite sure. I don't know.
Retirement vehicle, right? So there's different sectors depending upon where you are. 401k. What happened was back in the day, companies used to provide a pension. Okay, so at retirement, the company contributed towards your pension. And, you were able to collect that pension in retirement. Well, what was it about, I believe, the 70s into the 80s? It shifted to optional retirement plans. So what happened was companies stopped paying into pensions because there were some companies that owed so much in pensions, they were going broke. What happened was that in that period of time, probably by the mid 80s, I think most companies had shifted towards the optional retirement plans in which the employee was responsible towards contributing towards their retirement. And then the company would provide some contribution, but nothing like the 100% that used to be the case, with the pension system. So what happens is, with whatever the 401k, 403b, so there's different tax codes that have reference to, depending upon the sector that you're in, that would determine what retirement package or plan there is. Private sectors like a 401k, higher education institutions, nonprofits, things of that sort, 403bs.
Got it. Okay. So, I also wanted to get into more of how students, college students, high school students, and middle school students can save better. I know you said like 10%, 10% of like our income, but a lot of us say that it is really hard since we do have like entry level jobs, or not even entry level, but like also like like McDonald's, like restaurant jobs, retail jobs. So and along with us having to pay college tuition, having to pay different other bills, it is kind of hard to save. So I'm wondering what are some ways that we can maximize our spending so that we don't have to like dip into our
Absolutely.
savings.
Absolutely. So I would say, like, a good question that you're asking there. Very good. So the first part of it is budget, knowing how to budget, knowing how, or having a budget. A lot of people don't write things down nowadays. And you got a lot of apps for that also, so you've got a variety of different apps, and I don't want to promote any one in particular, but that will help you to look at a budget, your budget. So how much are you spending? How much are you bringing in? And then basically what monies do you have with your income and your expenses accounted for? That's pretty much the first step. If you wrote that down or had that, in an app or something, then you would actually see that definite number. And then you can work accordingly. Like, say, for example, I said the ideal would be like 10%. So if you can't do 10%, then what about 5%? If you can't do 5%, what about 2%? So wherever you are, you start somewhere and then build yourself up to the point of where you want to be. So that's kind of what it comes down to. And the key part of that is knowing what monies you have coming in and where those monies going out to. So say, for example, if you're one that you like Starbucks, right? Well, is that a luxury? Is that a want or a need? That's one of the things also that we talked about, with the knowing the difference between a want and a need. Do you actually need that? Is that a bare essential, or do you want that? So once you're able to understand and distinguish the subtleties with your expenses between wants and needs, then that can kind of help you also to discern what money you're spending and how you're spending the money that you do have, whatever that may be. So you eliminate your wants first, and then you make sure your needs are accounted for, and then you go from there. And I think if you start to scrutinize your budget with that criteria, then you can really start to kind of put some stuff to the side and say, that's a want. I can kind of not have to do with that. Instead of getting 5 cups of Starbucks coffee a month, maybe let me cut it out altogether and just buy some coffee and make it. So that's what Starbucks coffee, a cup is what, 7 something nowadays. That's $35, $40 right there. That's no small change for the month, right? So if that was $40 now that you're no longer spending on Starbucks that you're able to put to the side in savings, we're closer to that $100 now. So the bottom line is, wherever you are, know what it is that you have going on. So even with middle schoolers, say, for example, you get allowance. And I think that may have been passé by now too, with allowance, but things of that sort. And if you don't get it, then something maybe to promote to your parents to say, hey, what will it take for me to be able to get a certain amount of allowance? So then even with that, you'll know how much money you have coming in for the month. You'll know what your expenses are. You know the difference between wants and needs. And then you can kind of base, what you're spending money on and how you go about doing that. So it's the concept more so than the amount. So once you understand the concept and how to evaluate things, then you go ahead and put that into practice.
Right. I think it's also about discipline too, because we could talk all about it. We make a budget, and you try to cut these things out, but when you see this, when you hear the Starbucks calling your name, you're just like,
oh yeah,
let me do this.
Absolutely.
Let me just So I think it takes a lot of willpower and just knowing, okay, well, I think long term, this will serve me better. I need to really learn this too, because I haven't been the best at, saving my money lately, but I think that it's all about discipline. And if you really want to keep money in your account, then you really need to make sure that you're sticking to your budget. Yeah.
And definitely. Then even like with the meal plan, food, you got your meal plan, and then you got Turk dollars. So it's like, how are you using that and different things, So all of that factors in. And it's just different ways of kind of preparing yourself to kind of have the mindset that you should have or need to have in order to kind of arrive at where one would want to financially.
Exactly. Well, I think that we did a really good job about talking about this whole topic. Just to sum everything up, what are the biggest takeaways that people should understand about attaining wealth and spending and saving, things of that nature?
So I say the biggest thing, going back to the needs versus wants. All right. Number two, having a budget. All right. And then number three, your priorities. Just kind of once you kind of get your priorities in order and kind of start making choices of, where you want to be, because you got to have a plan. And once you have a plan, and if you know where you're trying to get to, that's the ultimate side of, now you can start to evaluate different options to figure out what's best to get you to where you want to be. But if you don't know where you're trying to get to, it's like shooting in the dark at a target that you don't know where it is. So having a plan is number one. Once you have that plan, then it's like, you can factor that in. And I tell folks, being very real is that sometimes you fall away from your plan. But as long as you have that plan and you know where it is, at any point, you can always self-correct or adjust to make sure you get back in line with that. I mean, because again, we're all human. You know what I'm saying? We make mistakes, we make errors. And it's just knowing where your target is and then being able to get back in line so that you have an opportunity to be able to pursue that and go from there. And then I was sharing with you, and I look forward to, I've got a buddy that will be able to take you a little more in depth and detail with some of this information about stocks and mutual funds and securities and things of that sort. So look forward to you all having that opportunity to connect the dots there. And, you can kind of get more in-depth information and details as it relates to those matters.
Definitely. I'm so excited. I know that the young people who would watch this, or even just like the older people too, will get more expansive knowledge, even from this, and from your friend too. So I just really thank you for meeting with me today and giving all this great information about stocks, retirement plans, mutual funds. I need to start now. So I'm going to start researching right now about that, and also making my budget, because that's really important.
Well, I tell you, great job. You did a great job in kind of, figuring things out and then leading and facilitating this interview here. So just keep it going. Keep it going.